Today I'm going to be reading Alex Rider first 5 pages. And the chapter I'm going to be reading is Force Free. So let's get into that. The bomb had been timed off to go exactly 3:30. Strangely, the man it had been designed to kill probably knew more about bombs and terrorism than anyone else in the world. He had even written books on the subject, looking after number 1, 50 ways to protect yourself at home and abroad. Might not be the snappiest of titles, but the book had sold 500,000 copies in America, and it was said that the president himself kept a copy by his bed. The man didn't think of himself as a target, but even so, he was always careful. As often as he joked it would be bad for business if he was blown up across the street. His name was Max Weber, and he was short and plump with a tortoise shell glasses and black jet hair that was actually dyed. He told people that he had once been in the SAS, which was true. What he didn't tell them that he had been dropped after his first tour of duty in his 40s. He had opened a training centre in London, advertising rich businessmen on how to look after themselves. He had become a writer and a journalist, frequently appearing on television to discuss international security. And now he was the guest speaker at the 4th International Security Conference being held at Queen Elizabeth Hall on the South Bank of Thames in London. The whole building had been cordoned off. Helicopters had been flying overhead all morning, and police with sniffer dogs had been waiting in the foyer. Briefcases, cameras, and all electronic devices had been forbidden inside the main hall. The delegates had been made to pass through with a ringer screening system before allowed in more than 800 men and women from 17 countries had turned up. Among them was diplomats, businessmen, senior politicians, journalists, members of various security services. They had to feel safe. Alan Blunt and Mrs. Jones were both in the audience as the head deputy of MI6 Special Operations. It was their responsibility to keep us with the latest developments. Although, as far Blunt as concerned, the whole thing was a waste of time. There were security conferences all the time. In every major city, but they never achieved anything. Experts thought the politicians lied, the press wrote it all down, and then everyone went home and nothing changed. Alan Blunt was bored. He looked half asleep. It was actually 2:15 when Max Weber began to speak. He was dressed in an expensive suit and a tie. He spoke slowly, his clipped, full voice of authority. He had notes in front of him, but he referred to them as only occasionally. His eyes fixed on the audience, speaking directly to each one of them In a glass-fronted projecting room overlooking the stage, 9 translators spoke quietly into microphones just for a second or two behind. Here and there in the audience, men and women could be seen with one hand pressed against their earpiece, concentrating on what was said. Weber turned the page. I am often asked which is the most dangerous terrorist group in the world. The answer is not what you may expect. It is a group that you may not know, but I can assure you that that is one that you should fear. I wish to speak briefly about it now. He pressed a button on his lectern and 2 words appeared. He had projected onto a giant screen behind him. Force free. In the 5th row, Blunt opened his eyes and turned to Mrs. Jones. He looked puzzled. She shook her head briefly. Both of them were suddenly alert. They called themselves Force Free. Weber went on the same news refers to the fact that the people wouldn't describe themselves as terrorists. They would prefer you to think of them as eco-warriors, trying to protect the earth from the evil of pollution. Broadly speaking, they are protesting against climate change, the destruction of rainforests, the use of nuclear power, genetic engineering, and the growth of multinational businesses are all very commendable, you may think. Their agenda is similar to that of Greenpeace. The difference is that these people are fantastic. They will kill anyone who gets in their way. They have already killed many times. They claim to respect the planet, but they have no respect for all human life. Weber clicked again, and the photograph flashed on the screen. There was a stir in the auditorium. As the audience exclaimed it. The first night they seemed to be looking at a picture of the globe. Then they saw the globe was sitting on a pair's shoulders. They realized it was a man. He had the very round head, which was completely shaven, including eyebrows. There was a map of the world tattooed on his skin. England and France covered his left eye. A Newfoundland hooked out over his right. Argentina floated around one side of his neck. A grasp of revolution spread around the room. The man was a freak. That's the end of today's reading for this video. See you in the next one.